Hi, this is Dr. Glenn Simmons, and welcome to the tutorial on the basics of research. I'll be directing you through this presentation for you to see some of the basic ideas about research. We'll be focusing first of all on Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom was a professor of education, and he set up the different cognitive ways that people learn. The lowest level being knowledge, the next would be comprehension, and so forth. We'll go through these in Bloom's taxonomy in just a minute. We're talking about developing depth in your writing. How can you develop that sense of depth so that when a person reads it, they know that you have done a great deal of research and come to some conclusions? Depth requires that the researcher be able to achieve at least an analysis level and hopefully the higher levels of learning, and we'll look at these in just a minute. Also, Bloom's taxonomy reveals the various levels by which people grasp things and understand them. Therefore, as you write this, you need to show in your writing that you have grasped the idea, that you have learned it, and that you're able to develop those ideas. Let's look at these. The lower level is called knowledge. Knowledge is the ability to recall data or information. This is the most basic level that we have. Secondly is comprehension, which is the ability to state a problem in its own words. This would be known as paraphrasing. The lowest level will be to quote it word for word, rote memory. To be able to paraphrase it would be the second level, which is comprehension. Application, which is the third level, is the ability to produce a new concept to solve problems through utilizing this new knowledge that you have. In other words, it's moving beyond the level of paraphrasing and being able to come up with some new ideas and able to do some problem solving. Analysis is the fourth level, and this is the ability to identify things into various parts. You can identify the motives that cause them, and two aspects of this level are inference, the ability to infer things, and evidence, that is the ability to find certain evidence about things. The next to the highest level is synthesis. The synthesis is the ability to create a unique original idea from information that you've gathered. In other words, you take all of this information and you put it together and a new entity arises. It's sort of like in chemistry when you mix two different elements together and a brand new element arises from that. This is what synthesis is. Something new and unique comes out of that. And the highest level is the level of evaluation, which is the ability to look at this new unique idea that you have and to be able to defend it and explain it in depth. This uses both internal and external criteria. We'll discuss what that is in just a minute. Bloom, and here's a picture of him, has some practical aspects, and this applies in all levels, and this especially refers to how we're going to learn things and deal with it. Knowledge, which is memorizing, recalling information, ask the questions who, what, when, and this is when we have the various main ideas that are discussed in the different learning styles. Comprehension, as I said, is the ability to say the same thing in different words. It is paraphrasing. Research papers that are just quotation after quotation after quotation never get above the knowledge level. Research papers that deal with paraphrase after paraphrase never get beyond the comprehension level. The third level, application, excuse me, this is problem solving. This is the ability to take what you've learned and apply it to a problem. An example would be apply the law of supply and demand to explain the current increase in fruit prices. Again, you're taking something and you're applying it to something else to solve a problem. Analysis is a higher level. Analysis is where you can subdivide the components into various parts and you begin to understand them. When you have the idea of, let me see if I can go back here. I've done something wrong. When you can go back to the idea of, how did I do this? Yeah, when you go with the idea of comparing, contrasting, and so forth, that's where that comes from. Synthesis is the ability to bring something brand new out of it. You're not having to paraphrase, you're not having to quote, you're not having to be able to try to rely on other things, but a brand new idea arises. That's the idea that you have, right there. It's the to see all that. And finally, the last is to evaluate, and to evaluate is to determine and to defend what you've said. An example, if I can do this here, is maybe not, is to look at, it says, how successful will President Bush's ownership society be in addressing the outcome of the low-income elderly? Anyway, that's just something where you have to defend it and describe it in depth. That's the level you'd like to get to in extensive research. Now, what we're going to be using in courses is the APA manual. This is the copy of it. And the APA 6th edition is our style guide. Style is very important. You're going to want to follow that style guide. For instance, you're going to want to look at such things as the headings. Now, this is a real header. When you go to a Word document, you insert a header. Don't just type it on the page. That'll screw everything up. Now, the title can be abbreviated. In other words, if you have a long title, you can make it shorter. The title is supposed to be in all caps. The word running head should be on there, and the number must be on the right-hand margin. Also, there are 3 levels that you have here: the title, the name of the person, and the school that it's written for. Again, when you look at that, there are 3 levels: title, author, and the university's name. The next thing is an abstract. There's no blank page. You go straight to the abstract. Now, notice about the header here. The word running head is no longer on there. Here's page. The page is there. For all pages other than the title page, running head is no longer listed. The words running head only appear on the first page. Then there's the abstract. The abstract is, as I say here, it is the last thing you write. It is not an introduction. It is instead a summary of the paper. If a person wants to know what your paper is about, then they need to go to the abstract, because the abstract will tell them. It is a summary. It is between 150 and 250 words. When you get to the other parts of the paper, several rules are going to be there. Use parallel construction. People are very bad about not using parallel construction with coordinating junction, putting things together using and, or, if, then putting things together. There must be parallel construction. Another thing that's important is discuss session endings with comments on the importance of the findings. Construction of accurate and complete reference list. Be sure that you look at your reference list and that you have them starting on a separate page. Here's what to avoid. Avoid this at all costs. First of all, people are continually confusing like and as. When do you use like and when do you use as? This is a big deal, and people make a mistake. What happens is people write their research papers the way they talk. And our conversation is not formal, it is informal. And this is very distracting and unprofessional and, of course, unacademic. Another thing is a dangling preposition. Who did he go with? Here's the preposition with. You can't have with without an object there. You have to have an object for your preposition. I know we say, who did he go with? But technically, grammatically, it should be, with whom did he go? That would be the correct way. Be sure you use your prepositions correctly. Another thing is number disagreement. People are continually getting this wrong because we try to write the way we talk or the way we hear. Each should do their best. Each is singular, there is plural. This is a major problem that I see over and over and over. Make sure that there's number agreement. Everyone should do his or her best. Each should do his or her best, or all people should do their best. Make sure the numbers agree. Colloquialism, slang, and informal language. Do not write your paper the way you talk. Do not use colloquialism such as, they really tried hard. It was just about the right size. I just wanted to die. All of those things are improper. Really, just, things like that are improper. They're colloquialism or they're slang or they're informal writing. Do not use such informal language. Another thing is paragraph length. I continue to see problems with paragraph length. Paragraphs are either too long and too complex and too convoluted and they go on and on and on, or they're so short they're just choppy. As a rule, a paragraph should never be longer than one page. If it's longer than a page, then you've probably got too much in there. It's too complex, too convoluted, too hard to follow, and it should never be shorter than 2 sentences. You should never have a paragraph that's just 1 sentence. 2 sentences can be okay, but normally they're going to be 3 or more sentences. Make sure your paragraphs make the right length. Wrong use of numbers. APA spells out exactly how you should do your numbers. Is it 5 or 5? If it's below the number 10, if it's 10 or below, you type it out like this. If it's above, you put the actual numbers. But make sure you do that right. Another thing is excessive quotes. When I see papers that are quotation after quotation after quotation, I know that they have never reached any depth in their thinking or what they're doing. Extensive quotes should never be used unless it is so important that it plays a significant role in what you're doing. In other words, if the paper will not survive without that quote, then add it. But as a rule, I don't like to see extensive quotes, because basically what that says is you haven't come up with anything new. You're either quoting it or you're paraphrasing it, and you've never come up with that really deep, involved, analytical setup of learning, or you've never come up with the synthesis that you need to come up with a brand new idea, and you've certainly never come up with evaluation. Another thing that I deal with over and over is wordiness and redundancy. People just run on at the mouth, well, with the typed computer. Brevity is of utmost importance. Make sure you get straight to the point. Wordiness is not a good thing. Redundancy, saying the same thing over and over, is not a good thing. Some people just go on and on. What it shows is you're trying to come up with enough words or enough length to make it, but you got nothing to say. Wordiness and redundancy is a real issue. Get to the point, make it clear, make it succinct. I'd rather see a 10-page paper that was to the point than a 20-page paper that didn't say anything. And I've seen plenty of papers that were long that said nothing. The other thing is wrong format. Make sure the headings are Word document headings and not part of the paper. People get that confused as well. Learn how to use Microsoft Word. Use Microsoft Word for the papers you turn into me, and make sure you learn how to use that correctly to make your paper really stand out. Use of second and first person. Avoid I or we and other first person pronouns. Do not use those. Do not use the first person in there at all, and never use you. Never use that, because what happens is exactly what comes up here. It sounds like a self-help paper rather than an academic research paper. The paper is not about you or what you think. It's not about that at all. The paper should be in third person at all times, not in first person, and definitely never in second person. Do not use the word you. Do not use I, our, we, my. Avoid those at all costs. And in the end, what's going to happen is you're going to have something that's much stronger. Do not use contractions. Do not use don't. Don't use anything that's a contraction. Never use contractions in a formal paper. And the result will be you're going to be moving to a higher level. It helps the researcher in their quest to grasp the ideas and write about them. Unclear writing comes from unclear thinking. I can tell you that that's the case. So make sure that you write clearly because you've thought it through. Research is coming up with a higher levels of learning, and in the process, you will do a good job.